Hello and welcome to another weekly update. I hope you're having a good week. Hope the new year started out well for you, and as we come to the end of this first month already, I hope you've kind of put all those resolutions into practice and you're working smarter, you're working in Microsoft Teams, you're getting stuff done and driving some of that productivity. A couple of things to talk about this week. I thought it'd be useful. I just want to give you kind of a review about my week next week because it feels like there's plenty of different things going on. Things keep changing, and there's some things that I haven't got down into a blog post yet. So, as I talked about last week, next week I'm going to be talking at Microsoft Ignite, the tour in Tel Aviv. I'm doing a couple of sessions with them. I'm doing a What's New in Microsoft Teams, talking about some of the new features that have been announced recently and some that are coming. And then I'm also going to be talking about my top 5 developer features. That's like a 15-minute kind of theatre session slot, just kind of quick, bam, 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 here are 5 features as a developer building Teams platform applications I find super useful. Things that I've noticed in nearly 2 years of building applications on Teams. Then the next day, there's one more thing on that first day in the afternoon. I'm going to be talking about how to architect teamwork with Microsoft Teams and SharePoint. And the reason I'm talking about this is there are a number of interesting new announcements that were made at Ignite in October last year around integration between SharePoint and Teams. Now, I know SharePoint is kind of really important for lots of organizations. It's where a lot of the content lives, it's where workflows happen, and it really drives a lot of those business processes. And bringing communication and the kind of collaboration capabilities of Teams into that is really powerful. Teams is the hub for doing all that kind of teamwork, collaboration work. Being able to access content from SharePoint is hugely important, but it's also important that if that happens, that the way that content is displayed is respectful of the workflows that have been built up, the custom parts in SharePoint that happen. So there's a bunch of integration announcements that I want to go through. And so I'm going to be doing that at the end of the first day as well. So look out for that session. I think it's 3:30 if you're attending. That's going to be interesting as well. And probably I'm going to commit to this. Following up from that, I will do a blog post kind of outlining all that stuff because I think it's really interesting. Then on the second day, I'm going to be talking about how you can build a Teams IVR bot. And I've talked about this on this podcast a couple of times before. I do have some blog posts ready to go for that, but I want to give the talks first to make sure the content is as good as it can be. I'm doing 2 lots of sessions. One's a 15-minute, one is a 60-minute. They're both about the same thing, but obviously one has way more depth to it than the other. And that's really about building bots that users can call rather than just being able to IM. And that's huge for like productivity gains, changing, making people work smarter. If it's possible to just kind of pick up a bot, have the bot tell you something, use your keypad to respond, that's faster than going to a web page or even having an IM conversation. So a bunch of interesting things happening there in that space. And so that's kind of a lot of kind of my next week. I also, so if you're not able to go to Tel Aviv, and I understand that probably not everybody will be, and that's okay. Ignite is coming to a number of different cities around the world, and one of the ones that's coming up next is London. February 26th, 27th, Ignite Tour is coming to London. Lots of the same information, lots of the same sessions. I'm going to be doing something there, but let's wait a bit before I tell you about it. Look out for blog posts there. If you're in the East Anglian region, then NordevCon is coming up as well at the end of February 21st, 22nd. I am doing something there as well. So yeah, there's plenty going on. There's plenty going on in the team space as well. A couple of things that have come out of the roadmap this week that are good to tell you about. And those are 3 new features that have launched into Microsoft Teams. So whilst everybody else was kind of concentrating on their New Year's resolutions and just trying to clear their email down after Christmas and figure out what on earth is going on and what they're going to do this year, the Teams team have been busy at it and finishing off some features that they then launched this week. The first is about organizational-wide teams. So you can now create an organizational-wide team in Microsoft Teams and have everybody automatically join it. And you can have that up to 2,500 people. So you can have 2,500 people, internal users, in a single organizational-wide team. Depending on your company, depending on your organization, you may want this or you may not want this, and that's okay. We've talked a lot about loops and about different tools and the kind of way that the different Microsoft tool sets fit for different workloads. Inner loop, outer loop, things like Yammer and SharePoint, email, all have their place. Teams, obviously, all have their place. And it's about using the right tool for the right type of communication. And when you do that, you're naturally going to get some overlap, and that's important because it gives the opportunity for organizations to decide how they are going to communicate best. So there's definite overlap here between an organizational-wide team and something like Yammer. But if you're on the smaller end of that organization, it might be that, if you've only got 100 people, it might be that a organizational-wide team fulfills the roles, that you would otherwise be using Yammer for, and you kind of feel like you're kicking around in an empty Yammer space because you do a lot of work on Teams. But it's also really important to have an all-company feed. It's important to have single messaging across that company. So this might be a useful feature for you here as well. And so plenty of different options, but this is now a launched feature. So if you don't see it in your tenant, bear with. It takes a little while to roll all the data centers in the world, get that stuff kind of rolling out from the northwest, and just give it some time, and it will soon be with you. Two other things that will soon be with you. One of those is private discussions. So currently you can do one-to-one private discussions with chats with people, and that's great. You can now add tabs, which is into those private discussions, which is kind of taking it to a whole nother level. Because now, rather than one-to-ones just being literally the IM back and forth, adding tabs into that means you can bring that kind of contextual content, because context and content isn't something that just happens in Teams. It can happen, one-to-one. You could be talking to your line manager and want to just bring up, here are all the projects I've worked on this year, or let's go through this expenses claim line by line, because I'm not, I want to understand, what they all are. A whole number of different things that are useful in a kind of one-to-one context. So that's now launched as well. Also launched is in private chat, so that one-to-one chat. You can now do screen sharing, and I know that's been a massive ask for tons of people in our space, certainly the IT space, of helping people and just understanding what's going on. I use screen share all the time. It's really useful for kind of just walking through problems, and it's just saves on typing and talking as well, if people can see what you're doing. So you can now do screen sharing one-to-one, and you can also do the whole take control stuff as well. So that's super interesting as well. Again, very excited to see that that's now marked as launch, so expect to see that kind of showing up in your tenant any day now, really. So all right, that's all some excellent new things that are coming to Teams. Like I say, excited to talk about some of the platform development stuff in Teams next week and through the rest of February into March as well. But right now I'm going to take a break. I'm going to enjoy the rest of the weekend, and I will try, I think, to do a short video from Tel Aviv. That's going to be my plan because I've never been there before. It sounds like a super interesting place, super switched on into all the kind of new tech and R&D, and there's loads of innovation happening there. So excited to kind of catch up with some people there as well. So I'll try and do a quick video if I can. But have a great week next week, and I'll speak to you again next time.